Hey guys, and welcome to a very interesting video. I was given Blade and Sorcery Nomad early by Oculus and the team at Warpfrog, and I am now allowed to post content on it, so I thought I would go through everything new in the game, and I've got to say I'm quite impressed considering it's a port to the Quest. So let's go in and have a look what's different and what's the same. So one of the first things you should notice is different is if you open up the settings, the graphics option is gone, as well as in the gore and blood. Blood on characters and weapons is now an experimental option. I recommend turning them off due to them causing quite heavy lag. Another thing that is very different is if you go over to the map, Citadel is not in the game. It is just way too hard to process for the quest, so right now it's not in here. So we're going to hop into Arena and look at some of the physics gameplay. So as you can see in Arena, most things are the exact same really. The weapon rack, all the books, everything's the same in the maps. The graphics have just been downgraded a little bit. And that kind of goes the same for the combat. Now I've noticed that the physics in the combat are pretty much the exact same. Dismemberment all works, everything seems practically the same. Characters have had a fairly decent downgrade in graphics, as well as the lighting in the game doesn't quite look as good. Other than that though, the game still plays the same. If you still want the core Blade and Sorcery experience but completely portable, then it is essentially the same game. Now one of the biggest changes you might notice is that a lot of the VFX do look a lot worse. So for example, the blood you just saw, the effects of the spells do not look anywhere near as good. Gravity, fire, and lightning all have been downgraded due to VFX being extremely performance heavy. They still look fine, and I think they won't affect your gameplay too much, so it's not a huge deal, and I think you should still enjoy the game as is. So unfortunately, one of the biggest and most noticeable changes is the graphics when it comes to dungeons. As dungeons are incredibly highly detailed maps, unfortunately they took the biggest hit. For example, the ocean looks pretty awful if I'm being honest. The actual rest of the maps, the indoor rooms, look pretty fine. In my opinion, I think the lighting's not quite as good. Trees, again, do not look very good, but you don't see that many of them anyway, so it's not really that harmful to the game. But if you have the option to play between the Quest and a PC VR version, I still recommend the PC VR version. You're missing out on way too much not playing it. So I feel like I'm just gonna talk over some dungeons gameplay while I talk about my thoughts on the game and how I feel about how it's going. I think having a portable version of the game is incredible, but I think that also there's been a lot of compromises to make this happen, and hopefully mods can improve on this. Wooly's better performance might even be able to do a big job if it's able to even work on the Quest. We have no idea, since it might. I don't really know the ins and outs of that mod. I don't know whether it's based in the game or based on it being on PC. I mean, there are a lot of positives, as you could just see in the gameplay there. Dismemberment does work perfectly fine and there is no issues with any of the physics. When the physics is probably the hardest thing that the PC struggles with. Ever since this update it's been a lot better. Stealth seems to be perfectly fine in game as well. If not, I've noticed maybe even slightly better, the hearing wise. It doesn't seem to be as difficult. I don't know, that's probably placebo and it's probably the exact same, but it just feels slightly different. One thing I will say is the game does flow perfectly fine for On the Quest, and if you don't have a PC and aren't able to run the game, this is 100% worth the money and I definitely recommend it. Another thing to note, that apart from Citadel not being in, every single thing that has come out in any update up until U10, so all the weapons, all the maps, all the armors, from like the enemies and stuff, all the NPC updates, everything is in Nomad. So Nomad is a completely up-to-date version of Blade and Sorcery, toned down for the Quest, and you've lost a map. And as far as I know, that is all the differences. The game works perfectly fine. Now if you plan to record Nomad, there is a few issues. Nomad doesn't feature the camera options, including the F2 mode, which is the player cam to stabilize the head, and it doesn't also feature the free cams. You can't do third person stuff either. Now for content creators that's going to mean a lot, and I think that most content creators will stick to base Blade and Sorcery, so you've just got to hope that when you're seeing mods on videos that these modders are also porting them over to the Quest, which will most likely happen since a lot of people are looking forward to this Quest port. Another thing I'll mention is that you don't really tend to notice the graphical differences when you're playing. I have found a lot of strange glitches like this, and this happens a lot more on the Quest version. It has happened a couple times on my PC version, but the Quest version, there's been a lot of NPCs either spawning stuck in the ground or just sliding over the floor, and that was really strange, because I didn't think they would really have those kind of bugs just porting a game over, but you know, there's always going to be a few, so just expect to see the odd bug. It doesn't harm the gameplay too much. Other than that, a lot of the dungeon rooms actually do look very nice as well. In the indoor ones specifically. The outdoor ones not as much, but the indoor rooms look great. They still look fine, and well, obviously, like I said, when you're playing the game, it doesn't harm the gameplay. It doesn't look bad. Things like bows and all that kind of thing, the physics still work fine. They even have the upgraded physics that they did in U10, which is great. And everything still performs very well. I was playing this for a couple hours and I noticed about 3 times when I had actual frame drops, and that was due to having 2 imbues on weapons, as you'll see soon, and even that rarely dropped frames. So it seems like the main thing that will hit your gameplay pretty hard will be visual effects. As you can see, the imbues on the weapons still also don't look as good as you would hope, but they still look fine for, again, a Quest version, and you're not going to really notice, like I said, when you're playing. But yes, visual effects are the most dampening on your gameplay. I feel like they are the thing that are going to hit your performance hard. So if you want really smooth gameplay, I would try to avoid having too many NPCs and too many visual effects going on at once. Try to not imbue your weapons as much, as not easy as that is. Again, another enemy stuck in the floor. But other than that, I was running a pretty solid 90 FPS the whole time. You won't obviously see that on YouTube because of the downgrade, but it does run very well. I will also say that the NPCs don't seem to have changed in any way AI wise. They seem to work perfectly fine. So as far as I can tell, this version is practically no different to the original version on PC. And I think, like I said before, if you do have a Quest 2 and you don't have a PC power enough to run Blade and Sorcery, I highly recommend spending the money on getting this. Before I end the video, I want to say thank you again to Warpfrog for letting me test out the game early, and thank you to you guys for making the channel blow up recently. We've nearly gained over 400 subs in just a month. It's insane, and I hope the channel continues to grow this way. So I will keep bringing the content you guys want. If you hop into the Discord server or leave a comment, Discord's the best way to reach me, as I do read all the suggestions in the server. So if you have any suggestions, just drop them in that channel. And apart from that, I hope this gave you a bit of an insight into whether you think you should buy Nomad or not. And if you do decide to buy Nomad, let me know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and let me know if you want to see more content on Nomad. See you guys in a bit.